always acknowledging that He who dwells and whispers in our hearts is the source of our arts. This is Hearts, Meaningful Conversations. Not one of us is safe or exempt from experiences that will test our mettle and our courage. In each stage of our lives, there will always be experiences that would challenge our sense of security with our own capabilities. Life has a way of teaching us valuable lessons by testing our perseverance and endurance. When we learn to be more discerning, we just might see life molding us, mentoring us through the events of our lives, no matter how trivial. I actually think that in order for us to receive the many gifts, the many treasures of the universe, we must follow the path that is not usually taken. In order to look for greatness in life, we tend to look only for the grand, for the spectacular. A lot of times, I think that the treasures of life are hidden in the little things, in matters perceived to be ridiculous or trivial. I was perhaps a second year high school student when I joined a poetry recitation competition school. This is equivalent now to grade 8. If my memory serves me right, there were only a few of us who competed. I cannot clearly describe the type of student I was back then. I have always tended to doubt my capabilities, especially because I highly admired my classmates back then. I saw them as the most intelligent people I knew. I still do. So there I was, juggling the demons in my mind, mustering the courage to take a risk, so I may see myself, finally, as someone better than I imagined. I remember the fear. I remember the lack of faith in myself. But also, interestingly, what I remember most was the feeling of release and relief when I began delivering the poem. When I started, it felt as if I have suddenly become someone else. Delivering the poem felt like dancing with a sense of abandon. It made me feel real good. Modesty aside, I felt that I was going to win, also considering how my opponents struggled with the words here and there. I felt good about myself. It was a moment of building confidence and faith in oneself. We were not identified by our names during the competition. We were instead assigned numbers. The announcement of winners was posted on a billboard the following day. The number assigned to me was written as the first place winner. I rejoiced. My classmates rejoiced. Needless to say, I felt proud. I won. It would perhaps be the first time I will win anything. I was beaming with pride. I waited for the awarding ceremonies, which were to be done late in the afternoon after all the activities of that day. That was a Friday. During the awarding ceremonies, which was held at the school's quadrangle, I was naturally with my classmates. We positioned ourselves away from the majority of the students, quite far from the stage. There were many activities during that celebration in school. The awarding ceremonies were done around sunset and lasted until evening. The awarding for the poetry competition came much later during the program. It was already dark when the program reached that point. The host began to announce, "We now come to the awarding of winner for poetry recitation." To avoid causing any delay in the program, considering our distance from the stage, I began walking towards it as my classmates began cheering. I didn't even reach half of that distance. Another name was cold. I froze. I find it amusing now, but I remember the moment as if I could no longer hear any sound. I saw the lady whose name was announced go up the stage and receive the award as I struggled with the most bizarre feeling of cold washing my face and my body. I froze. It was one of those moments when I appreciated the darkness. I would have felt so much more embarrassed and alienated if it had been bright. The darkness of the evening served as the warm mantle that protected from what I imagined would be looks of pity. To be a recipient of pity never feels dignified. I no longer remember how I managed to bring myself back to where my classmates were, and I no longer clearly remember how they all managed not to make me feel more humiliated than I already was at that moment. But I realized then that the heart and the mind have ways to etch such moments of humiliation in my memory. It was a Friday. I had the weekend to compose myself and to process. It was an experience that showed me possibilities of hurt, of credits and merits deserved but taken from me. It was a moment of education. I had to listen. And it was, I think, at that time when I vowed never to allow any form of humiliation to break me beyond repair. I decided to make such an experience to propel me towards a much better me. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I told myself these very lines from the very poem I delivered during that competition. Sometime the following Monday, we had visitors in our class, the teachers who organized the competition. They were there apparently to apologize and to give me the monetary prize. They made an error. One had the audacity to explain that since they only used numbers to identify the contestants, they immediately thought that the winner was the lady who was 2 years my senior and who was famous in the school as a very wonderful performer. I was deemed a nobody in the campus at that time. I do not remember being sincere in accepting the apology. I couldn't believe it. I won. But the feeling was no longer the same. What was there was a feeling of getting humiliated again. And it didn't help that the envelope they gave me that was supposed to contain the prize money had coins in it. I remember thinking, did you go around the faculty members asking for contribution for the prize that very same day? The money was immaterial. It wasn't much anyway. I also had no problems with the lady who was declared in public as the winner. I admired her back then. But what was most significant and concerning was the danger of a young person's self-esteem being shattered because certain people committed errors. Years later, when I look back at this particular moment, I would see it as rather ironic. There I was, fighting for the honor of becoming declared a winner in that competition. But life was teaching me a greater lesson. The very poem used in that competition spoke of strength in adversity. We will come to see when we become more discerning that life, in a lot of times, has both a painful and funny way of opening our eyes to the world for us. Of course, I no longer remember how I, perhaps overly dramatically, delivered this in high school, but allow me now to share this poem that obviously has had an impact in my life. It is one of the most powerful poems that have been delivered and shared by many other thinkers and movers of the world. The title, which is Latin for invincible, also then means unconquerable and undefeated. It was written in 1875 and published in 1888. The story goes that the Victorian poet William Ernest Henley was in an infirmary when he wrote these verses. He had surgical operations done on his foot because his left leg required amputation due to complications arising from tuberculosis. Allow me to share this now, when we have all been plunged into darkness, when our strength and willpower are collectively challenged by the circumstances we are all in now. Take courage. INVICTUS. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I do hope you join me in this journey of a kind of introspection or an interior conversation. I am drawn to talk about, or maybe even question or share anything about faith, about the arts. I am hoping that we may have meaningful conversations with thinkers from all over the world, poets in particular, spanning generations. I also do hope that sometimes I may come to have conversations with some friends whose life and work we may also learn many things from, as I also do hope I may have conversations with you. We have so many things in our hearts that when shared may also fill someone else's heart. And out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Have a very meaningful day, my dearest good friend.